You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Radio Show, only on Financial News and Talk. And live in studio, your host, local and national real estate expert and consumer advocate, Ron Siegel.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. But before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest. First timer on Ron Siegel Radio, Scott Schang, Find My Way Home, is with us. Good morning, Scott.
Hey, good morning, Ron. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you with us. And let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan or plan to save you money, I personally work with you, even if you don't have any needs today. Save this number in your phone for future reference, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And of course, it's Ron Siegel Radio, so we are celebrating today. You got to find, it's a tough one to find anything to celebrate. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the middle of August. National Thrift Shop Day.
It is what it is.
I don't know. I must admit, we've taken quite a bit of stuff to thrift shops over the years, especially as we help various families clean out houses and we get probate properties and whatnot. I love my feet day. Okay. I guess if you must. Black Cat Appreciation Day. Isn't that supposed to be in October? Wouldn't that make more sense to have that in October than in August? And I know there's some folks out there, I would not be one of them, that might be celebrating Hazy IPA Day today. I'm not much in the way of beers of any sort. Give me a vodka, give me wine. I'm not really into the beer world, but today is Hazy IPA Day. So, again, it is what it is. Let's take a look and see what the markets are doing today. Well, it's been a rocky road. Not the ice cream. That would be something I'd be looking for, but it's been a rocky road on the markets. Let's see, the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 50 points. S&P 500 is down 4. NASDAQ is down 50. Oil up $1.23 a barrel. I don't even know. Do we want to take a look at it? Let's run around the horn because we can. California, the formerly Golden State, $5.18 a gallon of gasoline. $5.18 a gallon. Ugh. Well, you know something? I should have some empathy for California, but I don't. We keep voting for these same stupid people over and over again. Gavin Newsom, right? He'll probably end up running for president when Joe Biden wakes up and realizes that maybe he's not ready for this anymore. But the bottom line is we're paying over $1.10 a gallon just in taxes and fees. $1.10 a gallon. That might be why Josh is over there paying $4.27 a gallon while we're over $5 a gallon. It might be why. Well, let's take a look. Jody, our processor, she's at $4.20. Scott, you're doing better. You're at $4.04 a gallon, a lot better than we are here in the formerly Golden State. And our tremendous underwriter, Lori, $3.43 a gallon of gasoline. That's the averages according to the AAA. We're not going to get any better because it wouldn't be because of the volcano outside of the Tonga. It's because of global warming. And, you know, we got to spend all this money. And I think all of us want to have a safe planet. But I don't know that mere mortals like us are capable of changing the weather. right? I mean, I know over the next 100 years with all the things we're doing, we might be able to save 0.009 degrees Fahrenheit. And think about this. Now, you're probably like me. It's been hot. And I don't maybe not as hot as Josh gets it out there in Vegas, but it's been hot and it's humid. We're expecting massive rainstorms this weekend. Okay, I get it. But the bottom line is if you're running your air conditioner like I do, and I keep my office about 72 degrees. I know I'm oversized and I like it cool. Now, if we were dealing with this global warming issue after 100 years, that 72 degree would then be 71.009. Think about that. That's the effect that we're talking about, yet we're spending billions and billions of dollars to do it. Does this make any sense to anybody? I mean, I get it that there's a lot of people that want to make themselves feel good, but here's the conspiracy theorist in me. You get the government and they can go and spend all this money and nobody knows whether it's working or not. It's kind of like taking your vitamins every day. And I don't know, I do take supplements every day since I had bariatric bypass surgery 16 years ago. I take supplements every day. Do they work? I don't know. But I take them every day and I spend my money on them. So it's the same thing. I mean, John Kerry, does anybody really believe John Kerry cares at all about global warming as he flies around the world in his wife's plane? He didn't want to say it's his plane, so he uses his wife's plane. Does anybody think he cares about these things? He makes a boatload of money on it. Al Gore, I know he invented the internet and he probably doesn't need any money, but he's been out there at this for so many years. How many of these folks have told us that the world is going to come to an end in 10 years? Has it come to an end? Well, under the Biden administration, it might be getting closer, but that has nothing to do with global warming. So when you go to the election booths and you're voting, watch out for that. Now, speaking of going to the election booths, in October, those of us in the city of Anaheim, we get to go to the election booth and see, are we going to put our kids out of the cold? What does that mean? Well, we've got a ballot measure coming up that's going to make a minimum wage for entertainment employees. That would be, they're saying it's for the maids in the hotels. $25 an hour minimum wage. But it's government getting involved.
You know better than that.
So what is it going to be? It's any entertainment venue. So local bowling alley, Camelot, your local high school football game, they're going to have to pay a minimum wage of $25 an hour to the staff around there. Do you think these companies can afford that? Now, I know that my 17-year-old, which I don't have one anymore, my 18-year-old, I don't have one of those anymore either. They have to make a living wage to start working. No, it's called an entry-level wage. It's not a living wage. It's meant to get training. Now, you're already starting to see this at McDonald's, right? They're getting rid of their cashiers. They're working on getting rid of their cooks, where they can do it all with robots. They don't have to pay them $25 an hour. So watch out for that ballot measure coming up in the city of Anaheim, because it may just be the start of a measure coming to a city near you. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, what do student loan repayments mean to you? They're starting up. Are you following them? Watch out. Don't expect a flood of foreclosures. What happens when you don't pay your credit card bill by the due date? All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the number 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
79% of all credit reports have errors that should be corrected through factual disputing. You could be saving thousands every year if your report was accurate. CreditSanitizer.com provides a free credit report audit when you furnish a specific $1 credit report. You can use this information to request corrections to your report and potentially save thousands of dollars. Get your free credit audit at CreditSanitizer.com. That's CreditSanitizer.com for a free credit report audit. CreditSanitizer.com.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates. They don't tell us the APRs, points paid, points received. They only report locked rates with consumers across 42% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. Ever hear of a company that has a 42% market share? But OBMMI, they have it. 30-year conforming loans yesterday, they were up 7.183. 30-year jumbo loans, they were down 7.383. 30-year FHA loans, 7.005, down a little bit. 30-year USDA loans, up just a touch, 7.052. And the 30-year VA loan, best loan on the market. You got to earn this one. You can't just apply. 6.905. And if you'd like to get our market commentary every morning, all you do is go to rsrmarketminute.com, rsrmarketminute.com. We email that out each morning, early in the morning, rsrmarketminute.com. And let's take a look at what's going on now today. Those are all yesterday's numbers. I know we try to get as current as we can. 10-year Treasury up 5 basis points. That's problematic. We'll talk about that in a minute. S&P 500 is down 2.33. And we've got the mortgage-backed securities down 37 basis points. Ow! That means interest rates are going up again. Why is this happening? Well, we've got the Fed minutes. Those came out yesterday. The Fed staff no longer believes that the U.S. economy will enter in a recession. Yes, it will. But does see downside risks to growth. They also believe there are upside risks to inflation, as they are not yet sure they have won the battle on inflation. Many believe more hikes may be needed. Fed also mentioned that the labor market needs a balancing of demand and supply. Guess that means they need more people to be laid off, which means they want a weaker job market. As we have mentioned, the Fed may need to see a weaker headline job figure before calling it quits on hikes. Market believes the Fed is done hiking and only estimates a 12% chance of a hike at the September 20th meeting, but the market has been so wrong and has not believed the Fed for a long time now. If we see inflation temporarily move higher in August on the heels of higher commodity prices, the Fed may hike again. Have you noticed what's happening with gasoline prices? Initial jobless claims measured individuals filing for unemployment benefits for the very first time fell 11,000 to 239,000. Continuing claims are those that continue to receive benefits after their initial claim rose 32,000 to 1.72 million. Clearly, from this standpoint, we are not seeing a weakening in the labor market as employers are holding on tightly to their employees they already have. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And this morning we've got a distinct pleasure, a longtime friend of mine, one of the smartest folks I know. He's passionate. When he gets involved in something, boy, he does deep dives, and some of us just kind of catch on to the edges, the fringes of what he's doing. Scott Schang, findmywayhome.com, is with us. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Ron.
So I see your latest endeavor. I mean, I one back or two back, I did get involved a little bit in the Helpers Act. That was those of you that heard us talking about that. That was all Scott's doing, and we've been doing some work lately on student loans. And Scott, you've really dug into this one, and you're deeply enthralled and entrenched in knowing what's going on. And I saw something. The end of this month is a big deadline on this. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So, part of the COVID debacle, March 2020, when the CARES Act passed, homeowners had the opportunity to opt into a forbearance program that temporarily stopped their payments until we figured out what was going on. But for 49 million Americans, their student loans stopped becoming due. They put it into what was called an administrative forbearance program, which means they just stopped all payments being due in March of 2020. Well, it's been 3 years now, Ron, and families are, we've got all the reports. They're increased their credit card balances. They've increased their car loan balances, increased their mortgage balances, and they've spent all that money, and nobody's been thinking about that student loan payment. Well, on September 1st, statements go out. October 1st, those payments are due. So the light switch for student loan payments is being flipped on.
That's a pretty interesting concept, because that's going to really affect a lot of people. And I know that the conservatives in Washington say it's going to be inflationary if they were to give that money back. Being the money's already been spent, I don't see how it's inflationary, because it's not going to be more money going into the economy. It's more money going back to Washington, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's going to, at least, yeah, the federal student loan programs, because we're only talking about federal student loans here. The private student loans, which is a whole nother issue that we definitely need to discuss, they only make up less than 10% of all of the student loans. So yeah, interest will start accruing, and they'll start government will start generating interest revenue. But yeah, for families, there's been a couple of reports out. Morgan Stanley put out a report. It basically said that only 24% of people think that they can make payments without not paying something else. So it's going to be a huge, huge impact. As a mutual friend of ours likes to say, most families have an expense pie. And, you've got a big portion of it for your rent, your car payment, your credit cards, your standard of living. There isn't a whole lot of room, especially with inflation on just cost of living expenses. There isn't an extra few $100 up to $1,000 left in most people's monthly expenses. And that's where the challenge is going to come in, is when this thing comes due, it's like, nobody likes surprises, but this is going to be the surprise that keeps on giving, because that $300, $500, $900 payment is now going to be due every single month. And you've got to completely rearrange the way that you're balancing your family budget.
Well, and the other part of that is that we don't save anything. So it's not like people have that extra money, right? It's not like they're taking, okay, I know that my student loan payment is going to be $1,000 a month, and I've been putting it into a savings account.
No,
because we've noticed that savings numbers are not growing.
no.
So we know that people aren't saving for this expense that they've incurred. And you made a comment there, 49 million people having student loans. And the last numbers I looked at, there was about 165 million workers in the country, something around that number. So that's like 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4 people are going to be affected by this, and they don't have the money to make this debt payment.
No, an overwhelming, I don't know what the percentage is specifically, but a lot of them are in public service, right? And they're, they're not, these people, a lot of people don't make a lot of money. When you look at salaries versus student loan balances, so many people are getting out of school with these huge student loan balances and they just don't have the salaries to back it up. So no, this is challenging. There's good news though. The good news is being educated about it, is being informed and knowing about it. Nobody likes surprises. We can handle what we know is coming down the pipe. And there are solutions. And I appreciate you bringing this to the surface, because this is kind of this is a bummer segment, Ron. Why are we talking about our expenses going up? And but there's a silver lining here, and the silver lining is education and empowering yourself to make proactive choices to put yourself into a better situation, and understanding the pitfalls and the dangers that are out there that surround this topic. And I think when you educate yourself about those things, being in our business, we need to educate our consumers about it, because consumers, they learn about this stuff through clickbait headlines and the news. And how how accurate news headlines are. They're not. They're clickbaity, and they cause fear and they cause panic, and they every time the administration comes out with something, then the next day there's something pulling it back. And the same thing is happening around student loans. So it's a complex web that is about to be woven, and it's going to impact like you said, it's going to impact a lot of people, a large number of people, both working and not working. 49
the
million
beauty is that we can at least and I appreciate you coming on, Scott, because as long as I've known you, and so it's quite a number of years, you've spent your career dealing with educating people on all different subjects, and this one is a big one. And one of the things we're going to talk more about this, so maybe some case studies even, where you can actually look and see what people are actually doing and how you can save some money. I'm going to, Josh, if you would put on there the link, rsrstudentloanhelp.com, rsrstudentloanhelp.com. It's a great a great resource, a place where you can actually go and get an idea. Is there help for you? And the topics, the things that you're going to see here, rsrstudentloanhelp.com, those are things that have already passed Congress. It's not something that the president is proposing and then the courts are going to rule down. These are things that are already law. Go to rsrstudentloanhelp.com. Scott and I are going to come back and chat more about this. You can reach me anytime. Our off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the number 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Is your budget getting blown up with high prices of gas and increased costs for other household needs? This is Ron Siegel, host of the daily Home and Finance radio program. Did you know if you have a low interest rate mortgage along with auto debt, credit card debt, or student loans, your family could potentially save $500 or more per month by restructuring these debts? If you'd like a free Borrow Smart analysis with our team, let's book an appointment to see how we might be able to relieve some stress. Schedule your appointment at rsrbsa.com. That's rsrbsa.com for your free Borrow Smart analysis. rsrbsa.com.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Don't expect a flood of foreclosures. The rising cost of just about everything from groceries to gas right now is leading to speculation that more people won't be able to afford their mortgage payments. And that's creating concern that a lot of foreclosures are on the horizon. While it's true the foreclosure filings have gone up a bit compared to last year, experts say a flood of foreclosures is not coming. Take it from Bill McBride, Calculated Risk. McBride is an expert on the housing market, and after closely following the data and market environment leading up to the crash, he was able to see the foreclosures coming in 2008. With the same careful eye and analysis, he has a different take on what's ahead in the current market. Quote, "There will not be a foreclosure crisis this time," unquote. Let's look at why another flood is so unlikely. There aren't many homeowners who are seriously behind on their mortgage payments. One of the main reasons there were so many foreclosures during the last housing crash was because relaxed lending standards made it easy for people to take out mortgages, even if they couldn't show that they'd be able to pay them back. At that time, lenders weren't being very strict when assessing applicant credit scores, income levels, employment status, and debt-to-income ratio. But now, lending standards have tightened, leading to more qualified buyers who can afford to make their mortgage payments. And data from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae shows the number of homeowners who are seriously behind on their mortgage payment is declining. If you're watching us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials, the ABC News and Talk AM 1490 video feed, you're seeing a chart of serious delinquencies, and they're going down. Molly Bowes, principal economist at CoreLogic, explains just how few homeowners are struggling to make their mortgage payments. Quote, May's overall mortgage delinquency rate matched the all-time low, and serious delinquencies followed suit. Furthermore, the rate of mortgages that were 6 months or more past due, a measure that ballooned in 2021, has receded to a level last observed in March 2020, unquote. Before there can be a significant rise in foreclosures, the number of people who cannot make their mortgage payments would need to rise. Since so many buyers are making their payments today, a wave of foreclosures is not likely. Bottom line, if you're worried about a potential flood of foreclosures, no, there's nothing in the data today to suggest that'll happen. In fact, qualified buyers are making their mortgage payments at a very high rate. That's the real-time real estate segment. Brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. I'm going to continue our conversation this morning. Scott Schang, findmywayhome.com. One of the best mortgage educators I know, or housing, I guess not mortgage, housing educators, because Scott does so much more than mortgage, housing educators. And today we're talking about student loans, and there's a big crisis. When you start looking at an issue that 1 out of every 3 or out of every 4 people are going to face, and I'm going to submit very, very few are ready for it. And the reason I say very few are ready is because we see what the savings rates are in this country. We see stats, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I recently saw a stat about how if a family had a $400 unexpected debt, a car issue, a tire issue, they couldn't make that payment. They couldn't come up with that money. And it was a huge percentage of the population. And now we're looking at a 1/3 or 1/4 of the population that's going to have this massive debt. And I'm going to share one number, and I'm going to let Scott go from there because he's got so much more knowledge on this. I went and put a close friend of mine, their information. I went to rsrstudentloanhelp.com, rsrstudentloanhelp.com. I put in their scenario, and it takes about 30 seconds. So I put in that they've got a income of $72,000. They owe $90,000 in student loan debt, family size of 1. I didn't know their interest rate, so I just put in the average of 6.5. Their payment is going to be $1,004 a month. It could be $334 a month if they were to go based on the laws that are out there right now. Now, because I lead a lending company, a mortgage company, that equated to an extra $90,000, $88,000 in purchasing power for a new home. Those are some staggering numbers, aren't they, Scott?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you're talking about is income-driven repayment programs. There are multiple income-driven repayment programs, but when somebody comes out of school with student loans, they're automatically put into a fully amortized payment, which is if you're a homeowner, you have a mortgage, you're familiar with amortization. You make the same payment every month and it gets paid off after 20 years, 30 years, something like that. What you're talking about and what I think we're trying to build awareness for is you may be eligible for a payment that's based off of your disposable income after all of your living expenses based on your family size, as opposed to just a blind calculation off of that's meant to pay your loan off. Because most people don't know that actually every single loan program or student loan can be forgiven after 20 years of on-time payments, even if it's an income-based payment. But more importantly, there's a lot of public service people that qualify: teachers, your police officers, people who work for the county, the state. They can have their loans forgiven in 10 years. And a lot of them are making an income-based payment because they don't make a lot of money in public service. Nobody's getting rich in there. They've got fixed salaries. They know what, they know what they're getting for trading their time. And like, that's the solution. Like, that's the very first thing that people should be looking at is those income-based payments. Which, and I don't know if you want to get into this now, but this brings up the private student loan scams that are out there, that anybody that's paying attention to this, be careful about emails that you get from companies offering to refinance your student loans. The scenario that Ron talked about, getting them from a $1,000 payment to a $300 payment, that's not refinancing their loan. That's just putting them into the right program, the right repayment program, so that they can qualify for the lower payment. But private student loans, once you get tricked into a private student loan, and these companies are so bad, they're banned from Google from running ads to consolidate student loan debt. So what they've resorted to is they're paying certain companies like NerdWallet and emails. They're sending out emails. And Ron, we've got a scenario that both you and I know about. County worker, worked at the county as a psychologist for 7 years. She panicked. She had $300,000 worth of student loan debt, panicked, responded to one of those debt consolidation emails. She has a $4,000 payment now when she would have been eligible for an $1,800 payment, and had all of her student loan debt forgiven in 3 years. Now she's stuck with a $300,000 loan and a $4,000 payment for the next 20 years or so, maybe 30 years, and she can't get out of it. Like, she's landlocked. She's not going to be able to access the equity in her home. She's not going to be able to refinance. And those are the kinds of things that consumers need to avoid. And if you're in a position where you can, like if you're a mortgage professional, real estate professional, this is an important bit of information that you should be out there talking to your clients about. Not only is it going to help them with their family, but like Ron said, and we had another story the other day, they were able to afford $120,000 more home. It was a first-time home buyer, young millennial family. They were able to qualify for $120,000 more just by getting into the right repayment program. Nothing else changed.
So one of my favorites, Scott, was actually a fraternity brother of mine. We went to college together, 200 or 300 years ago. And after college, he just made the decision that he was going to go into the military. And he spent 25 years serving our country, but he still had student loan debt from before he went into the military. He had taken out loans at where we went to school, and came out, retired about, 6 or 8 months ago. And when I sent this email out, he says, I retired after serving our country for 25 years, and now they're telling me I have to start paying my student loans back. And I put him in touch with our friends over at LoanSense, and they're the provider behind rsrstudentloanhelp.com. And they said, no, he's served our country for 25 years as public service, that his student loans are forgiven. And, he had no idea that was the case. And probably, most people don't even know to ask the question.
Right.
That's the whole thing, is you got to pose these questions. And I'm thankful that Scott brought this mission to us, that we can try and educate people on what's really going on out there, because these are not the handouts that we keep hearing from Washington. These are things that are already passed into law. And I mentioned in the last segment, you may not have been with us at that time. These are already part of the law, so you don't have to worry about it getting clawed back. The Supreme Court said in their ruling that the president's forgiveness program was unconstitutional. It wasn't that he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it without Congress, right? The things we're talking about are all things that are done through Congress, signed into law by whoever the president was at the time. And Scott, I think you had mentioned that there was like 10 or 11 different income-based programs or repayment programs that are all involved in this. Is that something accurate?
There's 4 or 5 programs, but there's one that's been revised 3 times, and that's the new SAVE plan. But there's SAVE plan, the pay plan, the IBR plan, the ICR plan, and the IDR plan. They're all kind of just different calculations based on where you work, what your family situation, what your income situation is. But the new program is actually really, really encouraging, and this entire process has caused a close look at how the student loan payment infrastructure is designed, and they're fixing a lot of stuff. So there is a lot of good stuff coming out of this.
Sounds good. We're going to talk more about all these different plans. We're not going to get into the weeds and the details of them, because in 30 seconds, you can find out what might be available to you. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. You can reach me anytime. Off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
79% of all credit reports have errors that should be corrected through factual disputing. You could be saving thousands every year if your report was accurate. CreditSanitizer.com provides a free credit report audit when you furnish a specific $1 credit report. You can use this information to request corrections to your report and potentially save thousands of dollars. Get your free credit audit at CreditSanitizer.com. That's CreditSanitizer.com for a free credit report audit. CreditSanitizer.com.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Your Credit Matters segment brought to you by CreditSanitizer.com. You have a credit report, it is wrong. What are you doing about it? Credit Sanitizer has these solutions for you. And as frequently happens, I talk too much, so we're not going to get a whole report in. But I will tell you, our friends over at Blue Water Credit do a great job for Ron Siegel Radio listeners. And they've got a lot going on right now. Tell them that Ron sent you. They'll give you a free consultation. And don't forget, pay your credit card bills the right way. And no, it's not paying them off in full every month. If you pay them the wrong way, even in full, you're probably hurting your FICO score. RSRCCpayment.com, RSRCCpayment.com. It's a segment we put together, and Josh has cut it out so you can actually watch that as a standalone. RSRCCpayment.com. That's your Credit Matters segment, brought to you by CreditSanitizer.com. You have a credit report, it's wrong. What are you doing about it? Continue our conversation this morning. Scott Schang, findmywayhome.com is with us. We're chatting about student loans. And, I sent out a lot of messages about student loans, and I had people say, well, I don't have any, or the people that took them out should pay them back. That's not our issue today. If you don't have student loans, my bet is, and I bet my neighbor's house, you know somebody that does. a child, a grandchild, a niece and nephew, a friend's child. Because when you're talking about an issue that affects one of out of every 4 or 5 people in America, you know somebody with student loans. Now, would you recommend to them, hey, you know something, your tax bill right now is $1,000 this year, but I think you should go ahead and pay $2,000. Would that make sense to you to make that recommendation? Or go to this tax preparer and they can show you how to pay more in taxes. Would you make that recommendation to them? Of course not. So why wouldn't you share some information that could save somebody money legally? rsrstudentloanhelp.com, rsrstudentloanhelp.com. And if you were listening to us in the last segment, you heard Scott share with us 4 or 5 different acronyms and programs that are out there. And I don't even remember all of them. I just know that they're there. I don't need to remember them. Bottom line is, I just showed somebody, one person how they didn't have to pay anything for their student loans.
Yep.
One person how they can go from $1,004 to $300 and change.
Yep.
And it takes 30 seconds to find that out. But let's find out a little bit more. Let's get a little more educated. Because I know there's some of you that say, I want to know what's in every one of those vitamin D capsules that I get. Oh, no, I'll just take my vitamin D. Right? Or I want to, I have no idea what's in the Body Armor or the Gatorade. I'll drink it. But, something like this, I need to know everything. So we're not going to tell you everything. But Scott, tell us a little bit about all these different plans. And there was one I know that our friend sent out a video just the other day that said you can get your money back for payments between between March 2020 until August. But you have to go through this process before the end of this month. And I don't know anything about it, but I think if you go on rsrstudentloanhelp.com, they do.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. They do. A lot of people were continuing to make payments after the administrative forbearance, and they're eligible to have that money refunded to them. And I'm also not going to break down all of the student loan, all of the income-based programs, because it's just based on different factors and different criteria. But what I will tell you, and this might not be popular with you or your audience, but the Department of Education under this administration has actually been doing some really, really good things. It was kind of in shambles. There were so many programs with so much criteria, and people weren't keeping track of things. I like the public service loan forgiveness program. I also like the teacher loan forgiveness program. And it basically says that if you go to school and you get a professional degree and then you decide to go into public service, if you make 10 years worth of payments, you can have your student loans paid back. Because most people that go into public service, they don't go there to make rich or to get rich. They're on fixed incomes, they're on salary scales, and they just, they don't have a lot of opportunities. So I think those are good programs. The biggest change.
I'll put on record, Scott. I agree with you. I think that we need those people to go out and do those public service jobs.
Yeah.
And anything we can do to say thank you, I think that's a big hurrah. Let's do it.
Yeah. So there's a few things in the headlines that are confusing to people that I would like to have cleared up, or I'd like people to know that can be cleared up. One of them is we heard all over the headlines that 804,000 people had their loans forgiven, their student loans forgiven. And, that sounds impressive. The headline is good, but when you really get into the article and you get to where it's buried in the 19th paragraph, that was because of mismanagement of keeping track of payments. Those people have been making payments for over 20 years. And part of their payments weren't being applied to their forgiveness. And that represents 1.6% of all people that have student loans. It wasn't a big deal, but you see the headlines and people think, oh, well, I'm just going to have my loans forgiven. The other big challenging headline that came out is the SAVE plan. And the SAVE plan is a modification of the pay-as-you-earn program. And essentially what they did is they raised the income limit so that you could make more money and qualify for this pay as you earn program. And they reduced the amount of your disposable income. So the calculation used to be, after all of your expenses, you have this disposable income payment. 10% of that was your payment. Well, that got reduced down to 5% from 10%. So increase the number of people that qualify for this program, lowered the calculation for their payment. I want to say, I heard Catalina say this from Loan Sense, that if you're a family of 3 or 4 and you make less than $70,000 a year, your payment's zero. So like that's encouraging. That's encouraging. One of the challenges, though, is the administration came out and said, we're going to offer a grace period, right? There's a 12-month grace period. So if you can't make your payment, we're not going to report it to your credit report, which sounds like a great deal, right? But if you're trying to apply for a loan, or you're trying to refinance, or you're trying to buy a home, the underwriter is going to ask for your payment history. And if you're not making those payments, you're not going to get the loan. So it's important to understand the nuances of those things. And then the last thing that I would share here real quick, Ron, unless you want to interrupt me, the last thing I want to share is the Fresh Start program. And none of us benefit from this other than the consumer. None of us benefit from any of this stuff except for the consumer if you carry student loans. But the Fresh Start program, typically if you were in default in your loans, you had to make 9 payments, 9 months worth of payments before you get that mark removed from your credit that says it's derogatory, that's pulling down your credit score by 60 to 90 points. Now you can make payment arrangements, make 1 payment and have the credit report cleaned. That's a one-time use only, and it's only good for the next 12 months. It expires in September 2024. So those are some tools that I think that it's important to understand. You may qualify for a payment based off of your income, the income that's left over. You might not have a lot of income left over, so you might not have a lot of a payment. Stay away from private student loan debt consolidation, and understand the Fresh Start program, and understand that these programs have been expanded. So if you didn't qualify before, you might qualify now, and you should check.
That's a big issue right there. And I love you bringing in that information there, Scott, because so many of these things, we just don't know. And the one I've talked about many times is because, we're based here in Southern California, and one of the biggest perpetrators that's really hurting people is the company that has their name all over our football stadium. Right, they're out there telling making boatloads of money, and I don't begrudge them for making money, because it might be somebody that needs that help. But the bottom line is, it would be much better if the people there had kind of like the reverse mortgage program, Scott, where before somebody could refinance their student loan debt, they had to go to an independent counselor. And I'm not a fan of government regulation, but when you got multi-million and billion-dollar companies out there praying and putting that clickbait out to an ignorant population, sometimes you need that help and you need that oversight. So as Scott put it earlier, don't go and something. I don't make any money if you go and get your student loans refinanced, or if you take the government programs that are out there that are already the law. Yeah. Our whole mission since 2010 on this radio program has been to educate you. And, if you want to still go and get that loan refinanced and do that damage to your family, more power to you. But if you want to go and take advantage of the law, the United States law that affects, like Scott just said, this SAVE plan, well, take advantage of the law, follow the law, and help your family. rsrstudentloanhelp.com, rsrstudentloanhelp.com. Cost you absolutely nothing to go there, check it out, get a free consultation. If you decide to retain them, fine. If you decide not to retain them, that's fine too. But the cost, from what I've seen so far, I haven't seen anybody that went to rsrstudentloanhelp.com that couldn't save money. And the retainer versus savings, I haven't seen anything that was less than a 1.5 month payoff. So the savings over 1.5 months was the cost of retaining them to do all the work for you and navigate the entire process. rsrstudentloanhelp.com. Scott, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing with us. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to Josh and Sean for engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.
Just push me over the